President Muhammadu Buhari's anti-corruption war intensifies. And now to our main topic for tonight. President Muhammadu Buhari has written to the National Assembly to seek approval to borrow $29.96 billion under the external borrowing rolling plan to address the infrastructure deficit in the health, education, water resources and other sectors. The president is also seeking the approval of the legislature to borrow 180.8 billion naira from the funds appropriated for special intervention, that's recurrent and capital within the next 3 years to fund critical recurrent and capital items. President Buhari's letter to the House of Representatives indicated that the $29.96 billion is for proposed projects and programs for loans of about $11.274 billion, and then $10.686 billion will go for special national infrastructure projects. There's also a portion allocated for Eurobonds amounting to $4.5 billion and a federal government budget support of $3.5 billion. And in the same vein, the letter for seeking environmental funds within the 2016 budget, the President also provided a breakdown of items to which the $180.8 billion would be allocated. He sought the environment of $166.6 billion for recurrent expenditure from the Special Intervention Fund, for which the sum of $300 billion was totally appropriated. And now there's a balance of $275 billion naira in that account, and another 14.2 billion naira from capital expenditure. That is where part of the monies will be coming from in the federal government special intervention program. Originally 200 billion naira was appropriated, and that allocation has a balance of 145 billion naira. Side by side, we'll look at the amount of monies recovered by the federal government so far. In a press statement in June 2016, the Minister of Information, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, said the federal government had so far recovered in cash 78.3 billion naira, $185.1 million and 3.8 million pounds and 11,250 or 11.250 million euros. Well, the figures are out there in the table. The question is, some monies have been recovered by the federal government, and we look at the 2016 budget. There was a budget of the 2016 budget is 6.07 trillion naira, and with a budget deficit of 2.2 trillion naira, I beg your pardon. And then one wonders, if there was a deficit of 2.2 trillion naira, how come the federal government is now seeking to borrow 9 trillion naira? That's the almost $30 billion that the federal government is seeking to borrow. Is it justifiable, and is it expedient at this time? Well, we'll be talking with a member of the APC. He's in our Abuja studios, and as soon as we can connect with him, Ni Akinsiju, we have some technical difficulties, we'll hook up with him. But first up tonight on the program, I have with me a legal practitioner who will also give us some perspectives on the matter. Libros Oshoma, many thanks for joining us on the program.
Thank you, my pleasure always.
Well, the figures are out there. How do you support the federal government's plan to go for an additional 9 trillion naira loan?
Ordinarily, anybody would want to support a sincere and genuine intention to borrow. But I can tell you that this government is suffering from its own propaganda. If you remember, you did say in your opening statement that when the budget for 2016 was passed, the government did say that the budget was, the price for oil was pegged at about $35 per barrel, $25 per barrel. and that also because of the bombings in the Niger Delta, there was going to be a deficit. And so they had planned to borrow to finance the deficit. If you also remember at that time, there was this trip the president made to China, and then also the noise and the celebration about borrowing from China to finance infrastructure, the railway, the Lagos-Calabar railway, the Lagos-Abuja railway line also. And then also the savings from the TSA, and then subsequently the recovered loot, because day in, day out you hear government had recovered so much, government had recovered so much, until in July when you know, the government was almost compelled to release figures of what had been recovered. Even after after releasing this figure, the government also did state that some of these funds were not fully recovered, and so the issues are still in court. But if you now look at the figure that the government is borrowing, it's even more than the 2016 budget, where it's almost a quarter of, or half of the 2016 budget, a half more than the 2016 budget, because 2016 budget is about 6 trillion, and now the government is planning to borrow 9 trillion.
All right.
And then the question you now ask yourself, not just the borrowing now, because in borrowing there are also plans on paying back.
All right, just a moment.
Okay.
We have our guests in Abuja studios, Niyi Akinshiju. Many thanks for joining us on the program. Niyi, how do you justify the government's proposed plan to borrow about 9 trillion naira over the next 3 years, and an amount which is far higher or much higher than the total allocation for the 2016 fiscal budget?
I think we need to establish the character of the borrowings, as it were. What is obvious is that it's not a year budget, it's not a year borrowing. It's a rolling plan, as you have observed. There's a 3-year package, 2017 to 2019. We can't possibly compare the borrowing value with the 2016 budget. It is what I personally call an appreciative and impressive determination, you know, to have a compact plan, you know, for 3 years. And it's like going back to what Nigerians used to appreciate back in the days, a 3-year rolling plan. It does mean that by the time we secure this loan, we would have a plan or budget execution, project execution that will span the 3-year period. Some of us had always insisted that you don't compact all projects within a 12-month period, especially for budgets. You know, our budgets had actually been unusual in Nigeria over the years. If you are going to build or construct a 1,000-kilometer road, you don't impute all that in a 12-year period. You must spread it over time, and you have milestones, you know, for each, for what you are going to do or what you want to achieve in those 3 years. I am aware that the federal government had also announced a number of key performance indicators.
All right, just a moment. Just hold your thought, Mr. Akinshiju. Hold your thought. We'll take a moment now. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation. Please stay with us.
The overheads. Since we are short of funding, we cannot and have not been able to release 100% overheads. And so far, I think we've only been able to do up to 8 months.
In the 4 months or 5 months since the budget was passed, we have, as the minister has indicated, spent an unprecedented 753 billion on capital, and we have not finished. We still intend to do more before the year is out. The loot that was taken more recently, much of which is still tied up in legal process. Whilst we were in Washington, we had very positive meetings around some of the Abacha loot, which is about $300 million, which the Americans have now agreed would be returned to us. The Swiss loot, there's now an agreement on the return of those monies. But largely, what we've been recovering is largely loot here in the country. We've also recovered quite a lot of property. Real estate, some of which we have converted into office space, because selling it at the moment we don't think we'll get good value.